Hola, Ainara.
Hola, amiga.
Hello. So excited to be interviewing you today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I always like to open with the same question. What did you want to be at 18?
Okay, I wanted to study graphic design. That is what I actually ended up doing. But I was between studying graphic design or chemistry engineering. And the reason of why I wanted to study that is because I loved chemistry, I love maths, I love statistics, and I was actually really good at it. So I had like a hard time letting that part go if I was going into the arts world. But then it ended up coming to just reading the program at university. And I just realized that I just love the subjects on the design careers. And that's why I ended up going there.
Okay, very interesting. Well, you and I met in Canada, in Vancouver. I
Mm-hmm.
would love for you to share why did you move to Canada?
Mm-hmm.
And what did that mean, that experience mean to you and your career?
Yeah, actually, I moved for my career. So when I graduated from graphic design, I in Mexico, I started working at a digital agency for a year and a half, and I started designing apps, websites, things that I didn't study in my career. And there is where you started listening of the term like UX, which was new, and I loved it. But I realized that I couldn't study that in my country. So I basically started like I just wanted to be in North America where everything was happening, like in real time. And I had a really good friend who studied at a school in Vancouver. So I did some research and that's why I came here. I studied a degree in digital design for a year.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's been 10 years that I've been working here.
Okay, wow, very exciting. So when you started in UX, there were not a lot of professionals. I mean, compared to today's market, where there's
Oh, no,
a high amount of UI UX designers out there.
not at
So
all.
tell us how difficult was for you to land a job after you studied.
Okay, so after I studied, which was a digital agency job in Mexico, honestly, it was fairly easy. So in Mexico, it's everything about like knowing people, contacts. So I knew the owner of the agency. So it was very easy. And then when I moved to Canada, that I didn't know anybody, the school did a great job on teaching us how to network. And at the end, Vancouver is a small city and everyone knows each other. So I did a lot of networking while studying and I landed my job fairly easy. But back then, I also had experience. So I had experience in Mexico. The school had a good name. We had this, they did something great. They did a like industry night or something like that, where students would present their final projects. And an auditorium was full of people who wanted to hire designers. So it was
Wow,
basically, yeah. So you would pitch your final project and then they kind of interview you in the hallways and then you will just schedule interviews. So,
that's
yeah,
amazing.
to be fair, that was not my first UX job. Back then, it was more like interactive design. So I was
Hmm.
still part of a marketing team doing a lot of branding. But then after 3 years of working as an interactive designer in Vancouver, I was like, I want to move into UX. And there is where I really did the change. But as you mentioned, like back then, there were not a lot of UX designers and everybody wanted a UX designer. So again, it
Hmm.
was like pretty straightforward to getting a job there. Yeah.
Okay. And so, what was your first real UX job, and what did you learn from it that has stuck with you?
Yeah. So I mean, I think I've been doing some like basic UX along my career, but the real one was 7 years ago. And I started working at a blockchain startup here in Vancouver. And it was such a steep learning curve. When I decided to move into UX, I was like, I know what I'm doing. I want to move into that area of design. It doesn't matter that I don't have the professional experience. It's going to work out. And then when I started working is when I started struggling a lot. There is where I like started getting like imposter syndrome. I never
Hmm.
felt that in my life before. Like I started doubting myself a lot, thinking that people knew I didn't have experience. And so that was more like an internal battle. It's not that the job was hard. It was just me trying to get used to like the idea of not feeling an expert in my field.
Interesting. Let's dive into that.
Yes.
really curious to hear because I've always admired your confidence. I do think you're a very confident person, or you come across as a very confident person. So I'm really curious to know, how did you battle that imposter syndrome in the early years? And how have you built that confidence, you know, for
Yes.
you as a designer?
Okay, great question. So, yeah, as you said, I've always felt very confident in what I do. I work very hard. So I'm always like feel confident of my skills. So imposter syndrome was completely new. And it was also combined with a little bit of anxiety. So I was like struggling a bit with mental health. So that was very hard. So I think it was a mix of things. One, I went to therapy. So that on a personal side,
Mhm,
which was great. And then on the other side, it was just teaching myself to be more like tolerant with myself. Like, I don't know, I very struggle with failing. So
mhm,
it was like an internal journey of like understanding that I know what I'm doing. They hired me for a reason. So it's just be like comfortable on being uncomfortable at work. And something that helped me a lot was to maybe before I would never prep before a meeting, or I would prep 5 minutes before the meeting started. Back then, I would maybe use 30 minutes. I would be like, you know what? I'm nervous. I'm not sure what I'm doing. I'll just use 30
mhm.
more minutes. And to be honest, I just worked harder. I was like, I made a list and I was like, this is what makes me nervous. Then let's work harder on this. And little by little, it faded. I mean, not completely. I think that after that, you just now have that little thing inside you of like, what if I'm not good enough? But I think it's on you to like learn how to deal with it.
It's a really human feeling. A lot of professionals, no matter their expertise or where they are in their careers, they're still feeling it. I always say that to me, it's just like a little voice telling you that maybe there's an area where you can still be better, and like there's an area where you can learn more and challenge yourself, and that helps us grow. So it's actually something positive and something good if you treat it in that healthy way.
Yes. And I've also learned that a lot of people feel it too. Even
Hmm.
like VPs, CEOs. I think that when you start opening about it, other people say like, "Oh my god, I feel that too." And I never ever doubted your skills. And it's like, wow, it's all in your mind. And you see
Hmm.
that a lot of people struggle with it no matter their seniority.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, that's great. So, my next question, Ainara, is what has been one of the proudest milestones in your career so far? And also, what did it take you to get there?
Yeah. So it's actually back in that job. So it was like my first official UX job working at a blockchain startup. Blockchain, I barely knew about that industry, but I always loved changing industries. And we had a very ambitious product that basically we wanted to bring NBA fans, so the sports like basketball
Mhm.
fans, into the blockchain. Very open brief, very abstract, but we had just so much fun. We were a team of 10 people and we started experimenting with technology, with a lot of branding, with great UX. And then we built a product that ended up having millions of users that it's called NBA Top Shot. So
Mhm.
when we started, nobody knew what an NFT was. But then when the product was in beta means that they just have only like a few amount of users testing it. COVID happened and sports disappeared from TV. So all these sports fans, they didn't know where to go and follow their like teams, you know? And there is where people started going into blockchain and found this. And it was just incredible just to have this experimental mind. We weren't afraid because we never knew it was going to be successful. So we weren't scared of failing. We just started cool things. Then we got millions of people. And it was just very nice to
Wow.
be part of that experience from zero to a lot. Yeah.
That's amazing. It's also that little bit of luck in your career where you're like at the right
Yes.
time, in the right place, the context, it's
Yes.
also helping. That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. Can you also share a moment where you failed or you struggle, but that ended up being a breakthrough for your growth in your career?
Yeah. To be honest, it goes back to that time of like imposter syndrome. It's not that I was failing, but I really struggled. And also, I would even struggle to go to the office and just like being on a social environment, I felt very uncomfortable. So I think that has been the hardest time. And what I've learned is like what we just said, right? Like Everyone struggles. There are only like areas of opportunity. You decide which veil you want to put in it, if it's negative or positive. And yeah, that it was also very humbling. So that's
Mhm.
always something I keep in mind. You know, when you feel that
Mhm.
things are going great, that you feel like such a great designer, it's just like, let's keep it low, very, yeah,
Mhm.
to earth.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What would you say to your younger self if you could go back to those early years in your career, starting in Vancouver? What would
Uh,
that be?
yeah. To have fun. I've only honestly had a lot of fun, but just remember to have fun. Like this is your life. You spend 8 hours a day in your job. Let's make it fun. Let's enjoy it. Let's be passionate about it. And also just to trust the process. I remember when I moved on to UX, there were times that I would look back and I was like, oh, if only my career was in UX and my first jobs were in UX, I would now have like 15 years of experience in this field, but life doesn't go that way. And I think it's
Mhm.
totally fine that I studied graphic design, then went to interactive design, now product design. Like, it's just trust the process. I feel that every job honestly gives you some learning. So,
Mhm.
also, and you can do whatever you want. Doesn't matter if you studied a specific branch of design. You're a designer, you can move everywhere you want.
I love that. I love that because I feel that also a lot of people feel like stuck by their certifications.
Yes.
And I always encourage people to explore and have fun. And like life is long. Your career, it's going to be long. So get outside, get out of your comfort zone, but also like test other fields, other areas. That's why I also feel you've been really brave, and I personally know you, so I know you've been challenging yourself constantly. That's also, something I really admire from you. Like you like growth in general, not just your career, but you also are in a constant personal development process. And so getting outside of your zone and exploring your career, I think it's such an important aspect. So, because you can also discover other areas that you're probably really good at.
Totally. And I want to say something. I love something you mentioned about like titles. I feel that when I went to university, like back then, it's like you need to have your university title. That's how you
Mhm.
get hired. But honestly, there are some industries that they don't even care where you studied. You just need to be
Mhm.
great. And design is one of them. Like there are designers that I work with that they started in like the most random careers, and then they're excellent UX designers. So like don't hold yourself back there. If you really have a passion, go for it. Like just explore. But honestly, do put the time on being great. Because I feel that now, as we know, like UX, there are like thousands of UX designers out there. And I also know that there are like 3-month programs that sell like in 3 months you're gonna be an excellent designer. That's not true. You really need
Mhm.
to put the time and the effort to be
Mhm.
excellent in a market that is saturated. So you don't need like super fancy titles, but you do need to show your passion and the interest in what you're learning.
Absolutely. And the hard work that you've mentioned before
Yes.
as well, right?
Yes.
Coach designers all over the world. What advice do you wish someone had given you when you were starting out in design?
Yes. I love coaching because I also taught design for 3 years at a university here. Oh my God. I think it's part of like find your passion. I the way I live my life is that passion guides me. So it's like find your passion and then pursue it because then people will actually feel that passion. I feel that you can tell right away the difference with when a designer is applying to a job and they just want the title or they just
Mhm.
want a big salary.
Mhm.
You tell right away. But then you meet people that follow their passion, that know their strengths, that talk about their weaknesses. That's the person I really want to work with. So yeah, just identify what really moves you and get really good at it.
Beautiful. And the design job market is tough right now. I do work, as you know, with many UI UX designers and product designers in my practice. So, what would you say to junior or mid level designers that are feeling very discouraged with this saturation of the market?
Yes, great question. Okay, a couple of things. One, you need to have an excellent portfolio. Not a good one, not an okay one, not the one that you put together in a week. You need to have an excellent portfolio that sells yourself. Like this is your business card. When you apply to jobs, I interview a lot. I honestly take 15 seconds to scan a portfolio and understand if it's good or not. So my biggest advice to every designer I talk to is like, put the time, work on it. Then whenever you think it's ready, ask for feedback, because you might be so involved on the project, you think everyone understands what you're explaining. That's not true. Get a lot of feedback. And honestly, here's where I also recommend to invest on chatting with like designers with more experience or even mentors or coaches to keep improving it. So one is have an incredible portfolio, a simple one. I always recommend that. Just keep simplifying. When you think it's great, no, you can even cut it half. I like be more precise. That's one. The second one that it's something I've been like also navigating in the industry right now is AI. I feel that if you go to places like LinkedIn, the entire year they're being like UX is dead, design is dead, AI is here. And that's not true. Like AI is an enhancer of your work, and you need to learn how to use it in your favor. So they won't replace us. But honestly, it's extra work for us to understand which tools work for you and which ones don't. And I honestly believe that now interviewers will start asking designers how they're using AI in their benefits. So,
It's happening.
yes,
It's
absolutely.
already.
Even in our job, like in January, we had a task from leadership saying, you all need to figure out AI and make it part of your process. So you need to become friends with that. I think it's an advantage. Now that I use some tools, I'm like, oh my God, this is actually time saving. But it's very like intimidating when you start using a new tool. Portfolio, be friends with AI. And then the last part of like apply to jobs that you really like. Well, no, you can apply to a lot of them if you really, really need a job. But when you interview, I would really practice my answers. Yeah. And you don't need to sound like a robot or just memorize them, but really understand your strengths, your weaknesses, what you learned on your previous project. Learn how to pitch, how to present your work to others. I think that's key.
Awesome. Thank you, Ainara. Those are great tips for sure. How can people find you? I mean, you're a mentor, so how can they connect with you and see how you can help?
Yes. Well, I'm on LinkedIn as Ainara Sainz. And over there, you're going to see my portfolio, which is actually ainarasainz.com. So feel free to reach out, send me a message, an email, and I will always be happy to chat with you all.
Thank you. This is great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Coach.